Good afternoon, Facebook. Today is April 2nd, and it is 12:16 in the afternoon. I tried to make this like a morning broadcast thing, but seems like the first couple hours after I get out of bed, I just can't find the motivation to go digging through statistics, facts, trying to find news articles that I find entertaining or interesting enough to want to talk about. So, yep, midday lately is pretty much where I've been doing this. But the first thing I want to tell you is that there has been some progress made with the Department of Health, the Washington State Department of Health's website. They have been updating their figures. So the Washington State, in terms of the number of cases, remains in 10th place. Washington State remains in 10th place. Currently, we're sitting at 5,984 confirmed cases, and the state of Washington has experienced 254 deaths as a result of COVID-19 as of the latest figures. The United States overall is reporting a total cases 228,727 positive or confirmed cases, and we've lost 5,373 American citizens. New York State remains the worst affected by far, and I imagine it's going to be that way from here on out until this thing has blown over completely. Latest figures indicate that New York State is reporting 92,381 cases, and 2,373 New Yorkers have lost their lives. Next door to them in the state of New Jersey, 22,255 with 355 fatalities. And in third place is California, 10,018 cases as of this morning with 215 fatalities. Not far behind them is the state of Michigan. Detroit has become a hotspot of late. Michigan has 9,334 cases and 337 fatalities in Michigan. I might have to review those numbers because it looks then like Michigan has a notably higher rate of mortality than does the state of California. So that might have been a typographical error on my part. But as far as I can tell, unless I've made a mistake here in the way I've written things down, Michigan, 9,334 cases with 337 people in Michigan having lost their lives. Nebraska is sitting at only 214 total confirmed cases. So the state of Washington has lost more lives to coronavirus than the total number of positive or confirmed cases in Nebraska statewide. Nebraska's lost 4 people. Wyoming reported a few days ago that Wyoming had the lowest number of confirmed cases of any state. That is no longer the case. As of now, North Dakota, Alaska, and South Dakota are all reporting lower numbers than Wyoming. South Dakota being, as of right now, the most mildly affected state for confirmed cases of coronavirus. They're reporting only 129 cases with 2 fatalities. So Nebraska is sitting at 45th. What a grim ritual this has become. Trying to examine as broadly as I'm able to the effects this is having on our society and on our culture, there are so many different facets where the effects of COVID-19 are becoming visible. And one of those is the price of gasoline. Scrolling through social media, I find people talking about how ironic it is that gas prices are the lowest they have been in years, and yet you're not allowed to go drive anywhere. I think the punchline of that particular joke on Facebook was that we're all living in an Alanis Morissette song. Well, that's, come on, as though things were not depressing enough. No offense, I kid. Not every song that Alanis Morissette has done was that bad. Flea played on that record, Jagged Little Pill. He was the bass player, and so there was some talented musicianship on that record back then. What was that, 1995? Hell, I don't know. My friends back in the 90s were into Alanis Morissette. Anyway, gas prices being the lowest they've been in many years, and yet we're not allowed to go drive anywhere. This has been a topic of some debate in terms of how this should be approached, because for the consumer, low gas prices are a great thing, right? But for the oil industry in general, the demand has plummeted. And I thought it might be a good idea to look at that. So this is a story published 2 days ago on March 31st from NPR. Drivers are paying less than $1.99 at more than 2/3 of the gas stations in the country, according to AAA. Gas prices are dropping to less than $1 per gallon in a few locations, but most Americans aren't supposed to go anywhere. That's the irony of the coronavirus lockdown. The national average price for a gallon of gas is now $1.997 per gallon, according to AAA, and it's expected to drop further in the next few weeks, down to $1.75 or even lower. Prices vary across the country. In 2 states, Hawaii and California, the average price at the pump is still above $3. And I was just out driving around this morning, and I think I saw regular gasoline around $2.24, $2.25 a gallon, something like that. But in Hawaii and California, the average price at the pump is still above $3. But drivers are paying less than $1.99 at more than 2/3 of the gas stations in the United States, according to AAA data. In Oklahoma, the average price is $1.55. I have family in Oklahoma. $1.55 per gallon of gasoline in Oklahoma. Individual gas stations can go even cheaper. Multiple stations across the United States have sold a gallon of gas for less than $1, at least temporarily, according to Gas Buddy. In the last week, 99-cent prices have shown up at various times in Kentucky, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Missouri, and more could join in the next days and weeks ahead, the price tracking site has said. Gasoline is cheap because crude oil prices have plummeted. The coronavirus pandemic has ground much of the world economy to a halt, creating a stunning drop in oil demand. And there's an increasing supply because of a price war between major oil producers, Saudi Arabia and Russia. Both developments have sent oil prices down to around only $20 per barrel. But most drivers aren't feeling a big boost to their budgets because of cheap gas, as the activity of ordinary life has ground nearly to a halt under shelter-in-place orders and social distancing. So that's pretty much the whole story from NPR. The Coronavirus Task Force held one of their press briefings yesterday at the White House. They're doing these every day. This particular one was split into 2 halves. The first half of this press availability was centered on the idea that with the way our country's attention and our resources are diverted towards battling the virus, there's a distinct possibility that certain criminal elements might take advantage of our being distracted. And specifically, they were referring to South and Central American drug cartels trying to increase their import into the United States of narcotics. So the president stood flanked by military personnel on either side to essentially send the strong message that we are not going to allow this coronavirus and the way that we're handling it to disrupt our protection of American citizens from the inflow of drugs. So there was a lot of explanation. There were a lot of statements made by the various people, and then there was some question and answer about that topic. And then the military personnel exited the room and were replaced by Dr. Birx, Dr. Fauci, and the vice president. And then they discussed where things are standing in terms of our confronting the coronavirus. Within this press availability, the topic of oil prices has come up. Somebody asked and pointed out that the Saudis have increased their production of oil. And they asked the reporter, I don't have it written down who it was, asked the president if he's advocating that we reduce or cut oil production. This is how the president responded to that. Well, look, we have a great oil industry, and the oil industry is being ravaged. And as you know, Russia, and I spoke to President Putin, had a great call. Russia, Saudi Arabia, he also spoke with the Crown Prince. They also had a great call. But he says, I think they will work it out over the next few days. If you ask me, they both know what they have to do. I have confidence in both that they'll be able to work it out. And so he's referring to that price war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. How exactly that's going to directly affect oil prices worldwide is something I'm going to have to keep an eye on. I don't understand the way the oil industry works to that level in terms of whether or not a price war between those two major oil producers is going to have a more broad effect, especially considering that, as the president points out, the United States is now and has been since almost the beginning of this current administration the number one producer of oil in the world. So how is this going to affect us is something I'm going to keep an eye on. He continues, it has ravaged an industry worldwide. I mean, worldwide, the oil industry has been ravaged. So there was a lot of oil production to start off with. And then on top of it, it got hit with the virus and business went down 35 to 40%. So that business is a tough one. And you know, they have ships all over the sea. I told you yesterday, all over the sea, massive tankers that they're using for storage. They go out and they just sit there. There's no place to go. They have massive amounts. Now gasoline is going to be 99 cents a gallon and less. That's already starting. It's popping up, 99 cents. So that's like giving a massive tax cut to people of our country. When we try to get the airlines going, if fuel is costing much less, it helps with getting the airlines, which is always a tough business. Always has been a tough business. But with that being said, look, I want to get that industry back to where it was. We are doing records in that industry also. We want to get it back to where it was. So I think that Saudi Arabia, Russia, they're negotiating. They're talking, and I think they'll come up with something. I'm going to meet, and this is the president again, I'm going to meet with the oil companies Friday. I'm going to meet with independent oil producers also on Friday and Saturday, maybe Sunday. But we're having a lot of meetings on it. I think I know what to do to solve it. But if they're unable to solve it, then I think I know what to do to solve it. And there was pretty much no more information given on that. He's not going to tip his hand, so to speak, with what his strategy would be to exert any control over that situation. So gasoline prices way down, demand for oil way down, less than $20 per barrel of oil right now. This is the lowest that we've seen in at least a decade for the price of gas. So while it might be a good thing for the individual consumer, again, with a lockdown or shelter-in-place order throughout the country, and not every state, and that was another point that was discussed in the press availability yesterday, not every state has instituted a stay-at-home or shelter-in-place order. And by the way, there is a difference between a shelter-in-place order and a stay-at-home, stay safe like what we have in Washington. A shelter-in-place order actually means that if you are found outside your home, then you might be subject to criminal prosecution and you might be thrown in jail, you might be fined. We are not experiencing those conditions in the state of Washington, and it doesn't seem like it's necessary. Again, we've gone from being among the top 3 worst affected states. Washington state is where domestically this whole phenomenon began, and now obviously it's way worse in other places. Louisiana has more of a problem with coronavirus now than Washington state does. I think they're ranked just one above us, so we're not far behind them, but Louisiana has now surpassed the state of Washington, if that puts things in perspective. But we don't have a shelter-in-place order that would legally compel you not to leave your home. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to go out and take a walk. I took a 2.5-hour walk with my friend's dog yesterday. It's a gorgeous husky named Eddie. I had a great time. It was awesome. Anyway, some reporter at the press availability pressed the president as to why he's not instituted a national across-the-board stay-at-home order. And I tend to agree with his thinking on this. When you've got one state reporting over 92,000 cases, and then you have states reporting 150, then I don't think it makes much sense to impose the exact same restrictions nationwide. That doesn't make sense. I think it's important to have flexibility between the states and to allow each state government to determine what the best course of action is. So I'm sort of with the White House on that idea. Now, the law which was passed, H.R. 748, the CARES Act, is something that I think we should all be looking at. Again, I don't remember exactly how many pages, something like 340 to 350 pages. And there's a lot of anxiety out there right now. There's a lot of anxiety specifically with respect to people in their living situations. People are not allowed to go to work and be in direct control of their own financial security. And I think it is my belief that that's what everybody wants. People want to know that if they make the decision to take control of things through their own individual initiative, and they work hard enough, that they can attain control over their own financial situations, over their own independence, and that they have the power right at their fingertips to determine what happens and how safe and secure they and their lives are. I believe that's what everybody yearns for. Right now, we are dependent on the government and the laws that are being passed through Congress in Washington, D.C. to give us a sense of how safe we are in our living situations. Having somebody else take care of it might seem appealing on some levels, but my belief is that anybody who's actually attained the ability to own their own home because they've worked hard enough and because they've managed their finances and their lives sufficiently to allow for that, once you've had that, I don't think you want to give it up. And now many people are forced to give it up because they can't go to work. They can't go to work and make their own money and make their own decisions how that money is to be allocated throughout their own lives. Instead, they're being asked to depend on bureaucracies thousands of miles away to make those decisions for them. Even in the short term, that's creating a lot of anxiety. I've seen it firsthand. So for the short term, I just wanted to take a look at exactly what the law says about mortgages, about rent, about evictions, etc. And I'm just going to read from the text of the law. So this is again from H.R. 743, the CARES Act, Section 4023, forbearance of residential mortgage loan payments for multifamily properties with federally backed loans. In general, during the covered period, a multifamily borrower with a federally backed multifamily mortgage loan experiencing a financial hardship due directly or indirectly to the COVID-19 emergency may request a forbearance under the terms set forth in this section. Now, I might have referenced the wrong section of this law. Again, this is for multifamily properties. There is a foreclosure moratorium in the section of the law directly preceding this one that happened to make it onto my printout. Foreclosure moratorium. Except with respect to a vacant or abandoned property, a servicer of a federally backed mortgage loan may not initiate any judicial or non-judicial foreclosure process, move for a foreclosure judgment or order of sale, or execute a foreclosure-related eviction or foreclosure sale for not less than the 60-day period beginning on March 18th, 2020. Well, there's pages of information about this. Some people that I've spoken with have anxiety about whether or not their particular situation and their particular arrangements would fall under the protections provided within this law. My expectation is that pretty much everyone's covered. Pretty much everyone's covered. No one wants to see somebody pushed out of house and home at a time like this. And I would say that if there's any property owners or institutions overseeing the financial arrangements under which a property owner is operating, who are even thinking about trying to take this crisis as an opportunity to put someone out of house and home, then I think that that institution would be subject to severe penalties once the dust settles and all of this crisis is over. I don't think we have much to worry about. People want to get back to work. Personally, I've gotten a little bit used to this now, about waking up and just kind of rolling out of bed when I feel like it. I've gotten used to sitting here and deciding what television program I want to watch next. I've gotten used to being able to just get up and go to the fridge and grab something to eat whenever I feel like it. I've gotten used to not going to the gym every single day. I was having anxiety when I, on the advice of experienced professional trainers, reduced my trips to the gym from 7 days a week to 5. And I have now not gone to the gym since the 13th of March. And I've gotten used to that. I don't like the fact that I've gotten used to it. I don't like the fact that I've gotten used to not being worried about how well I do at my job and how that will translate to my paycheck. It's comfortable to sit back and know that other people and other institutions are worrying about things like this. And I don't like getting comfortable when it's at the expense of my own financial independence. I don't like depending on anybody else for what I've got. But again, I'm getting used to it, and that bugs me. So I'm convinced that many, many people are feeling the same way. And I can't wait to get the message from my boss and from their bosses as to when I can set my alarm, get up, compose myself, and go do what I do. I can't wait. I don't want to get any more comfortable with this inactivity than I already am. I'm not saying I want to sit here and be a nervous wreck about it, but I don't want to get any more used to this. I don't want to get any more comfortable with this than I already am. Not at all. I don't have anything really planned for today. I might take Eddie for another walk. I've been told by Eddie's owner that I'm allowed to do that whenever I want to, and boy, I had a great time yesterday. I really did. My knee started bothering me. It's something I've experienced since I started doing so much cardio about 4 years ago, but I was out for 2.5 hours. It was actually a really nice experience running around with a giant husky for 2.5 hours throughout Tacoma. No one wanted to mess with me. That was that was for sure. So for now, you know, before I sign off, I've noticed in my own activity something that oddly brings me a sense of peace. It's become a quirk. I like buying office supplies. I always have, and I never really stopped to think about it. I remember all the way back to when I was a kid, if I'd be at the grocery store with my mom and we'd be in the aisle that included school supplies, all the empty notebooks, the brand new notebooks without a scratch of writing in them, it would make me feel excited, like these are empty blank pages that are just begging to be written on. I would love buying new notebooks because I would instantly want to get home and sit down and just start writing. I had drawers full of notebooks of just my own thoughts, diaries, journals, etc. And I don't tend to do that too much anymore, but still, the allure of a blank piece of paper is more than I'm able to resist even to this day, even though what I choose to write is a lot different, whether it's poetry, whether it's research pertaining to something like this broadcast, being able to have information right at my disposal, being able to organize the information I've got. I was out today and I started buying filing supplies. I've printed out so many pieces of paper lately so that I can have the information here to share with you guys, that I just have an urge to spend hours sitting with filing supplies, with folders, with all this information and organizing it as well as I can. I showed you that binder I have yesterday, and it's so full that I needed to buy another one. So I did. It's kind of like I've been comparing it to, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie with Mel Gibson. It's called Payback. Into this brainwashed character's mind was programmed an irrepressible urge to buy a copy of a book called, I think it was The Catcher in the Rye. Is every time he sees this book, it's like he has to buy it. And I've kind of developed a similar quirk of my own. Every time I see an empty notebook, office supplies, or anything, I want to buy it and try to bring it home and incorporate all this junk and all this info that I've got and use my new supplies to organize it. It brings me an odd sense of peace. I don't know. I don't really have much of an explanation for it, but I got a bunch of this stuff lying around now. So, hey, that's what too much boredom and too much idle time does. It makes me want to go out and buy stuff like that. I guess there are worse vices, right? Well, anyway, so I'm going to leave things there for now. Oh, man, 27 and a half minutes of broadcast today. Crazy. Well, I'm going to sign off for now. Be good to each other.